Hello and welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy this story. I'm going to try and upload a new story each day. The Manuscript of Horrors. Holly Arnold sat at her desk in her quaint Isle of Wight cottage, the gentle lapping of the sea against the shore a distant background hum to her thoughts. As a crime novelist, Holly was no stranger to dark tales in the twisted depths of human nature, but nothing could have prepared her for the arrival of the manuscript that now lay before her. It had come in a plain brown envelope, with no return address and only her name written in an elegant script. Curiosity piqued, she had opened it immediately, her fingers trembling slightly. Inside was an old, leather-bound manuscript, its pages yellowed with age and filled with a spidery, almost illegible handwriting. As she began to read, Holly was immediately drawn into the first tale, a chilling account of a gruesome murder that had taken place in a remote village on the island over a century ago. The details were disturbingly vivid, the descriptions so precise that Holly felt as though she were witnessing the crime herself. She shivered and put the manuscript aside, telling herself that it was just a story, a product of someone's macabre imagination. But as the days passed, Holly found herself unable to stay away from the manuscript. She read each story with growing unease, recognizing the names of places and people, all connected to unsolved murders that had occurred on the Isle of Wight over the past century. The tales seemed to grow darker, more personal, as though the author knew intimate details about her own life and fears. One night, unable to sleep, Holly returned to the manuscript. She was halfway through a particularly gruesome story when she realized with a start that the victim's description matched her own. The details of the murder were exact, down to the smallest detail, and the chilling realization dawned on her that the events described were happening right now, in her own home. Heart-pounding, Holly scanned the room, her eyes falling on the window. It was slightly ajar, the curtains fluttering in the breeze. She rushed to close it, her mind racing. Was someone watching her? Had the author of the manuscript been in her house? The thought was terrifying, but she knew she couldn't stop now. She had to know who was behind this. The following day, Holly took the manuscript to the local library, hoping to find some clues about its origins. She spent hours poring over old newspapers and records, discovering that each story in the manuscript corresponded to a real, unsolved murder case on the Isle of Wight. The dates and names matched exactly, but there was no mention of the manuscript itself. It was as though it had been written by an invisible hand, chronicling the island's darkest secrets. As Holly dug deeper, she began to notice a pattern. Each story seemed to be linked not just by the murders, but by a specific family name that appeared repeatedly, the Arnolds, her own ancestors. She felt a cold chill settle over her. Was her family somehow involved in these crimes? Or were they victims, cursed by a malevolent force that spanned generations? Determined to find answers, Holly visited the oldest surviving member of her family, her great-aunt Beatrice, who lived in a ramshackle house on the outskirts of the island. Beatrice was a recluse, known for her eccentricities and rumored to be a witch. Holly had always dismissed the stories as superstitions, but now she wondered if there was some truth to them. Beatrice greeted her with a knowing smile, as though she had been expecting her. She led Holly to a dusty attic filled with old books and relics, where she revealed the family's dark history. The Arnolds, she explained, had been cursed centuries ago by a powerful witch whose daughter had been wrongfully accused of witchcraft and executed by Holly's ancestor. The witch had vowed revenge, and her curse had haunted the family ever since, manifesting through the manuscript that recorded each murder committed by the cursed descendants. The manuscript is a living entity, Beatrice whispered, her eyes glinting in the dim light. It feeds on fear and blood, drawing power from the deaths it records, and now it has chosen you, Holly. Holly's heart raced as she realized the implications. The manuscript was not just a collection of stories, but a harbinger of death. Our death. She had to find a way to break the curse before it was too late. With Beatrice's guidance, Holly set out to find the witch's grave, said to be hidden in an ancient, overgrown cemetery deep in the island's forest. The journey was fraught with danger, as though the island itself were conspiring to stop her. She encountered strange figures in the woods, heard whispers in the wind, and felt the oppressive weight of unseen eyes watching her every move. Finally, she found the grave shorn by a weathered stone inscribed with an eerie warning, "Here lies the curse of the Arnolds, bound in death, but not in peace." Holly knew what she had to do. She dug into the earth with her bare hands, unearthing a small, iron-bound chest. Inside was a tattered piece of parchment, the original curse written in blood. As she read the words aloud, the ground began to tremble, and a wraith-like figure emerged from the shadows. The witch's ghost, her face twisted in a mask of rage and sorrow. Holly stood her ground, repeating the incantation Beatrice had taught her, calling upon the spirits of her ancestors for forgiveness and strength. The ghost shrieked and lunged at Holly, but she held firm, her voice rising above the cacophony of the restless spirits. With a final, desperate cry, she completed the incantation, and the ghost dissolved into a wisp of smoke. The curse lifted at last. Exhausted but triumphant, Holly returned to Beatrice's house, the manuscript clutched in her hands. Beatrice smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "You have done it, my dear. The curse is broken, and the manuscript's power is gone." Holly burned the manuscript that night, watching as the flames consumed its pages. The horrors it contained would never harm anyone again. As the last embers died out, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The island seemed brighter, more peaceful, and for the first time in her life Holly felt truly free. But deep in the forest, where the witch's grave lay undisturbed, a new story began to write itself in the earth, a tale of vengeance and blood, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to discover its deadly secrets. Years passed, and the story of Holly Arnold's brave confrontation with the family curse became a legend on the Isle of Wight. The island's residents spoke of her with reverence, and her novels, inspired by her own harrowing experiences, became bestsellers. Holly herself settled into a quieter life, enjoying the peace that had finally come after so many years of darkness. But peace on the Isle of Wight was ephemeral, and some legends never truly die. Deep in the heart of the island's ancient forest, where the witch's grave lay, the earth began to shift once more. Unseen forces stirred, awakening a malevolent presence that had lain dormant for too long. The tale that had begun to write itself in the soil was not forgotten, merely waiting for the right moment to resurface. The island had always attracted those with a penchant for the supernatural, and it was only a matter of time before someone with a dark curiosity found their way to the grave. That someone was a young, ambitious archaeologist named Sean Winters, who had come to the Isle of Wight to uncover its hidden secrets. Sean had heard whispers of the cursed manuscript and the witch's grave, and his fascination with the macabre drove him to seek out the truth. One crisp autumn afternoon, Sean ventured into the forest, armed with his tools and a determination to uncover what others had feared to face. He had spent months researching local legends and piecing together clues from old records and Holly Arnold's own accounts. The deeper he dug, the more convinced he became that something extraordinary lay beneath the island's surface. It took him hours to find the grave, hidden beneath a tangle of roots and vines. The inscription on the weathered stone sent a shiver down his spine, but it also fueled his excitement. He began to dig, his heart pounding with anticipation. As he unearthed the iron-bound chest, he felt a strange sensation, as though the air itself were charged with electricity. Inside the chest, he found the tattered parchment that had once held the curse. But there was something else, something that Holly had missed, a small, leather-bound journal. Sean opened it, revealing pages filled with the same spidery handwriting as the manuscript. These were not tales of the past, but visions of the future, each page detailing a new horror yet to come. As Sean read, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The journal spoke of unspeakable acts of violence, each one more brutal than the last. And at the center of it all was a name he recognized, Holly Arnold. The journal predicted her return to the island, her final confrontation with the darkness that had haunted her family for generations. Determined to warn Holly, Sean made his way back to the village. But as he walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The forest seemed to close in around him, shadows lengthening and shifting in unnatural ways. By the time he reached Holly's cottage, night had fallen, and the air was thick with an oppressive silence. Holly was surprised to see Sean at her door, but she welcomed him in, sensing his urgency. As he explained what he had found, Holly's face grew pale. The peace she had fought so hard to achieve was unraveling before her eyes. We have to destroy it, Holly said, her voice trembling. We have to end this once and for all. Sean nodded, but as they turned to leave, the cottage door slammed shut. The air grew cold, and an eerie whisper filled the room. Holly and Sean exchanged a frightened glance, realizing that they were no longer alone. A figure emerged from the shadows, its form shifting and indistinct. It was the witch, her presence more powerful and malevolent than before. She had been awoken by Sean's curiosity, and she was not pleased. "You cannot escape your fate," the witch hissed, her voice like nails on a chalkboard. "The curse will never be broken." Holly stood her ground, summoning all her courage. "I defeated you once," she said. "I can do it again." The witch laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the cottage. "You are but a pawn in this game, Holly Arnold. You may have delayed the inevitable, but you cannot stop it. The darkness is a part of you, and it will consume you." Sean stepped forward, holding the journal aloft. "We will end this," he declared. Together, the witch's eyes glowed with an unholy light. "You think you can challenge me? You are nothing." But Holly and Sean were undeterred. They began to recite the incantation Beatrice had taught Holly, their voices rising in unison. The witch screamed, her form flickering and distorting as the power of the curse began to wane. The cottage shook, and the ground beneath them cracked open, revealing a chasm filled with darkness. Holly and Sean continued their chant, even as the witch's wails grew louder, more desperate. With a final, deafening roar, the witch was sucked into the abyss, her form dissolving into nothingness. The chasm closed, and the cottage fell silent. Holly and Sean collapsed, exhausted but victorious. The journal and the manuscript were gone, consumed by the same darkness that had taken the witch. Holly looked at Sean, gratitude and relief in her eyes. "It's over," she whispered. "It's finally over." Sean nodded, but a lingering doubt remained in his mind. The island had a way of holding on to his secrets, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this victory was only temporary. As they stepped outside, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon, they both knew that the Isle of Wight would never be truly free of its shadows. But for now, they had won, and that was enough. Or so they hoped. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please don't forget to like, and even better, like and subscribe. Thank you very much, and I hope you have had a great day.